Welcome to the Shit I'm 30 podcast. This is the weekly show where we discuss and share our unfiltered opinions on topics such as mental health, relationships, sometimes it gets a little kinky, and we talk about sex, parenting, and so much more. With me, your host, Carla Ramirez. Now, my goal is to get rid of society's expectations about where we should be when we're in our 30s and just free ourselves to live the lives that we've always dreamed of. Now, friends, remember, it is never too late. Welcome, guys, back to Shit I'm 30. I am doing the very first interview virtually. So I am home and I'm actually face to face with my guest. We just had a full-on conversation. Yes, her name is Carolyn.
Hello.
I'm really nervous about it because technology scares me. You never know when the tech gods are going to be like against you and something will go wrong. But you know what? Today I feel like this is something that I've been wanting to do now for a couple of weeks. So it's going to go through. I was just on Instagram and you're probably looking at me crazy. I am like pale, like almost white. And I'm trying to figure out, like, do I have jaundice? Is something wrong with me? I don't know what's wrong. And I'm pretty sure it has something to do. I've spoken about the fact that I haven't had sun in over a year since last October. The only time I've been to the beach or anything like that was June with Mandy in the Bahamas. Outside of that, I live in this room, you know? And now it's about to be winter again. And I think I have a deficiency of like vitamin D or something. Like I need sun, the vitamin and in the dick part too. So
both vitamin D.
Right. So I think I'm going to fulfill them both this weekend and see how I feel again on Monday. But as of right now, I feel, excuse my paleness. I'm not white, I promise. So we're gonna, before we go into, you know, why you're here and why I wanted to bring you in, we're going to do our shit you should know. And I thought it was really funny today while I was looking through articles and I saw that student IDs for a middle school, they listed a phone sex number instead of a suicide hotline in a school in California. So basically a California, right. That's exactly what I said. I'm like, a sex hotline? Like who made a joke?
Huh. Yeah.
I thought it was a joke. So it says the California Public School District apologized Tuesday after a sex hotline number was printed on ID cards issued to the middle school students. The New Vista Middle School intended to print out a suicide prevention hotline number on the IDs, but they mixed up 2 digits and that resulted in the sex hotline number. And they didn't know that when they printed it. So it was that close from a suicide to sex. Then the middle school administrators, said that we'll be collecting all student IDs today and they'll be printing new student IDs. But I'm thinking, okay.
The damage is already done.
Right. These kids already called up this sex line. Middle school, you know, kids in middle school are so immature and they think everything's funny. But I figured this is a great time to incorporate like better sexual health classes and like open up about sex. You kind of have to now. What is a sex hotline anyway?
You know what? I have no clue what a sex hotline is. I could imagine it being people asking random questions about positions and or what kind of entry or hole it is. I mean, I don't know. The most I ever knew of hotlines was when you calling to talk to people, but more for playing, not for educational purposes. So
I don't think this was for educational purposes. I'm thinking this is like one of those 1-800, do you want to suck my dick type things. I'm here available for you, Daddy. How would you like for me to touch myself?
Exactly. Call in now. It's a great time.
Yes.
So bad. Whoever did that should get fired.
Do those commercials still come on?
Oh yeah, they after certain hours they come on. Yes, they do.
I have to. I'm gonna look it up. I haven't seen them in years since I was like younger, living at home.
I'll definitely see that a lot of the. I'm a night owl and I get a little sleep. So around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll definitely hear the call now and come join us on the play line. And oh, you're lonely by yourself? We'll have company for you. I get all of those. I see all of those.
Company.
Oh my God, yes, come have fun with us.
You know what? I'm wondering, can I do this as a part-time job? I can do a sex night. Come, I'll keep you company, Daddy.
Listen, if times are hard, why not?
It's not video. It's only voice. They don't
exactly. Remember Girl 6? Like these Girl 6. There you go.
Right. They'll never know who I am. It's okay.
Exactly.
But guys, this voice that you're hearing is the beautiful Carolyn Toney from talesoftony.com, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So she has an amazing blog. It's about sex positivity, you know, her journey. She tells all her stories. And she DM'd me a couple of weeks ago. And she's like, I would love to come on the show. And she's like, I'm in New York. And I'm like, fuck my life. Everybody's based out of New York or somewhere outside of Orlando. So how am I supposed to do this? So I put my brain to work to see what the best way it would be for me to do a virtual interview. Although I've always been against them. They're great. There's a lot of huge podcasts that do virtual interviews. Like, I mean, Dr. Joy for Therapy for Black Girls. She does it. The Gold Digger podcast, Tony, like huge. They do it just like this. But I just felt like it wouldn't be personable. But I mean, you're right there. Sure. I can see you, girl. Yeah. It's like,
hi.
I feel like, hi. You're right in front of me. So this should be okay. Hopefully it'll work out. But so Carolyn, there's so many layers to you. And I thought it was pretty cool. And actually, I should make that my shit talk, actually. Oh, I'm going to change my shit talk. I'm going to change my shit talk, actually. Let me write it down right now so I remember. Yes, all right. Boom. Okay.
I'm ready for this. I'm prepared.
Yes. I was talking about it on live earlier today. Okay. Anyways, so you have all these different layers to you. And the one that there's one that's everybody goes like, whoa. But one that really stood out to me is because I have not ever had anyone with any of your layers on the show, first of all. So it's like you're combined. You're all in one. But my biggest
thank you.
I know. And one of them is the polyamory. So kind of tell me a little bit about you and tell us like who you are and what you represent and, you know, who the hell is Carolyn Toney?
Okay, so Carolyn Toney is a boisterous, outspoken, 33-year-old Black female born and raised in New York. I have been sex positive without the label since 14 when I lost my virginity. And then I finally became positive about my sexuality, I want to say like the last 3 years. And yeah, I started writing a blog, pretty much chronicling my horrible adventures in dating because I felt that I couldn't be the only one dealing with all the bullshit that I was dealing with. And then eventually it became a blog where I was writing around the issue that I actually am herpes positive. And then I finally put it out there and it has been like steamrolling ever since. There have been so many people that have reached out to me, thanking me for my story, thanking me for actually speaking a different truth about the virus. And yeah, and the polyamory side of it has come within the last year, where I pretty much realized that monogamy, when I was in monogamous relationships, I was never satisfied. I was never fully happy. And the idea that I can love people the same way I love my family in abundance and romantically at the same time, it clicked to me that polyamory was the way I wanted to live my life. And so right now I currently have 3 partners. And they all know my they all know my status. They all know of each other. They haven't all met yet, which is the next step. I have to deem it if necessary, but they all know of each other and they know each other by name. And yeah, it's been like one of the best decisions I've ever made because I don't have to worry about mixing stories up anymore. When I was just dating and didn't tell people, I could say I'm going to see this person, I'm going to see that person, and they'd be like, okay, have a good time, you know. And it's such a weight off my shoulders. And I feel strongly about every last one of them and I know they feel strongly for me. So it's the happiest I've been in my life in a long time.
Wow. You say also like just, yeah, you know, I have a couple of boyfriends and I'm just, you know, love here and love there. And yeah, I contracted this, but it's cool because I'm talking about it and everyone is perfectly fine. Everything's good. So what's up? And first, when you talk about it and when I see you write about it, like, first of all, your writing is impeccable. I absolutely love it. Did you go to school for writing?
Yeah. I went to school for fashion and that is actually my daytime job. But then I always loved, I love the art of writing. I love literature. I love the written word. And so I was originally everybody said I should do a podcast and I was like, no, I want to write. So I'm just writing.
Which is funny because I started Shit I'm 30 as a blog. It was shitim30.com and as a blog and where I would write, I had stories of my daughter and I and different things. But I quickly realized that I wanted to talk and do a podcast instead. So that's how this came about. But writing still, I love to read and I love to write my feelings. Like when I journal because of anxiety, it's I love it. So let's start with I want to start with the polyamory part of it because you just said you started being polyamorous?
Yes.
this year.
Okay. Yes. It's defining it. Yes. So after a string of relationships, monogamous for most of them, I want to say like pretty much 14 to about 29, I was monogamous relationships only. I was single for about 2 years in between then, and that was where the horrible dates happened. And then I decided, you know what? I want to see what this is for me, what it works for me. And I happened to met my first partner, and I was like, okay, I like him. I want to see where this goes. I want to continue. Shortly after that, I met someone else, and it was just like, okay, I still like this, and I want to see where this goes. And they know that they both existed at that time. And then I just not recently, but I want to say in the beginning of the summer, I met the guy who is now my primary. And he's like, if you want to do like hierarchy, he's like the primary guy because he gets the most of my time because he's the most available and he's the one I engage with the most. We have the most in common, but I still feel strongly for the other ones as well. So
there's like a hierarchy of love.
Yeah. Yes, there can be. It is for me. Some people, they put them all on the same level to avoid that, combat that feeling of having to compete for another one's affection. But for me, it is a hierarchy because it is that dynamic with he and I.
So where did you learn about polyamory? Because when I think about my upbringing, it was just my mom and my dad. I would say my dad was probably polyamorous, but my mom didn't accept of it. He was just a big ass cheetah. So
which is a lot of the case.
Right. So my dad had lots of polys. My mom just had him. So I know the structure of a family from this just a man and a woman. Yeah, the man cheats or whatever, but it's supposed to be monogamous. So I wouldn't even know what the rules are or how to feel about it or who to speak to when it comes to polyamory. So did you have family members? Was your parents that way? Like how did you know to get into it?
Well, see, everybody that I knew was exactly monogamous. Everyone from my mom, my brother, my sister-in-law, my aunts, my uncles were all monogamous. I learned of the term polyamorous from watching Real Sex.
Sue Johansson?
Not Sue Johansson, just like the HBO show Real Sex.
The show. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
What's Sue Johansson's name? What's the name of her show?
Is it? Let's talk about sex maybe or sex
I can't remember. Oh, but yes,
yeah, I don't. Exactly. So I watched that and I knew that polyamorous love styles existed, but you never see examples of it because essentially if you're walking down the street, you see one person you see two people. You don't see two people holding hands kissing. Like you just don't see that visually. Right. So actually my first introduction to an actual polyamorous relationship was meeting another bombshell was my first threesome with a couple that also happened to be herpes positive.
Both of them?
Yeah, they were, yes.
Okay. Well, when was this?
This was, I want to say 2017.
So 2 years ago. How long have you been, because it's such a mix here. So how long have you known that you that you had HSV 2, right? So it's herpes.
Yes. I've been positive for 10 years. So I found out exactly. And I was like, what? Yeah, but I was not happy.
How did you find out?
I found out because I used to shave, and I found out when I had a little bump that didn't look quite right, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And I thought it was a shaving bump, so I just popped it, put some Vaseline on it, and I went back to work the next day, and then it still didn't feel right, and I was like, "What the fuck?" So I go to the doctor. So I go to my mom because my mom is a nurse, and I'm like, "Something's not right, Mom. Look at my vagina," and she's like, "It looks." Yeah, me and my mom were very candid. She was like, "It looks like." I'm like, "Oh no, it's not that." And I started crying, did the whole crying spiel and went through the whole emotions, whatever. So I said, you know what, let me just go to the doctor to make sure. So at that time, the doctor took a swab of the actual sore. And she said, it could be herpes or it could be an infected hair follicle. And I was like, oh, and I'm not religious, but I was praying that it was an infected hair follicle. I'm like, please don't.
God, this is when like you have like your balls tight and you're like, God, I will do anything.
Exactly. Long story short, that prayer didn't work and it was herpes. So I was like, damn it. So it took a period of adjustment to kind of realize what that meant in the context of my sexuality. I will say that I wasn't informed by my doctors who told me that I had herpes. They didn't sit there and they said, well, take your medication and use condoms. Don't engage during an outbreak. They never distinctly said, you have to tell your partners you are herpes positive. So there was a period in time in my life after being diagnosed where I did not disclose because I didn't know that there was a risk without an outbreak. which a lot of people don't know. A lot of people aren't aware that you can transmit the virus if you don't have an outbreak present. And a lot of people also don't know that when you go and say, can I get tested for everything, that everything is not including herpes. So a lot of people are.
It's one of the most common STDs.
Exactly. But that's the thing. If no one has a symptom of anything, you're not going to think to say, well, let me go get tested for it. And when you ask for it, it's not included because so many people have it. And so many people who have cold sores is also a form of the herpes virus. Right. And if someone has a cold sore on their lip and they go and get oral sex with someone, they have a higher chance of transmitting that oral type, quote unquote, type 1 to someone's genitals, and it will be type 1 genital. So a lot of the conversation
so
in
general.
So
there's two different genital herpes?
Yes. Okay. So there's two main types of herpes that we all think about, which is type 1 or type 2. There are 8 total in the whole herpes world, like chickenpox and shingles and all those things. Okay. But the main ones that people focus on is type 1 or type 2. The difference in type 1 or type 2 is if you hold up your hand and you remove your thumb, it still is that's type 1. Put your thumb up, that's type 2. They're essentially identical in virus. One is more active than the other, but there is no difference in essentially the DNA of it, and they can live both places. So a person can have herpes type 1 orally and genitally, and a person can have herpes type 2 orally and genitally. Oh, and there's actually, so it can live, the location is just happen to be the location. The type is totally different. The type can exist anywhere.
Did you go, right after you were told, did they say it very nonchalantly, like, yeah, this is what you have, take medicine and that's it? And what did you do then? Like, did you go celebrate? Did you stop it? How did you feel? I want to know that feeling of, because even though it is herpes, and I feel like nowadays we hear it more often, it's still very taboo and we still like shy away from it, but it's not HIV, but we act like it is. So how did you feel?
Yeah. So I actually have a friend who at the time that I was diagnosed, I had a friend who had very severe oral outbreaks. She would blister up and couldn't come to work for like a week because it was that bad. And again, in my mind, knowing that it's similar virus, I asked her, well, how do you date with the virus? And she was like, well, I just don't engage when I'm having an outbreak, and that's it. So in combination with the doctor not telling me that I have to disclose, and her having this virus for years and just doing that method, I adopted her method. And I was like, well, if I'm not having any outbreak, in my mind, I thought I wasn't contagious. So I want to say maybe like a few months, I was celibate and not doing anything, but then it didn't last long. I would say like within 3 months after being diagnosed, I have a high libido. So that going celibate was not an option for me. So maybe 3 months after being diagnosed, I went back to one of my previous partners, and then we were together for, I want to say maybe a couple of months after that until we officially broke it off.
Was this the partner that you contracted it from?
No, what happened was with that partner that I actually contracted it from, and the nature in which I contracted it is very unique because a lot of people don't have the ability to pinpoint it. For the most part, unless you have, most people, if you go with the conclusion that most people are not tested for herpes because it's not included on your regular test, so when you go and get tested with your doctor, if you come back with an actual lesion, they can test the lesion. The lesion doesn't confirm how long you've had the virus in your body or not. A lot of people assume that my first outbreak is my first interaction with the virus, where you may have had the virus for years and not have known it. Oh. Now, when I got tested, I actually had a sore they were able to test, and they were able to swab it, and it came back positive. When they tested my blood a month later, my blood came back negative. Because your body takes 3 to 6 months to develop antibodies for anything that it's introduced to. And it was only because of that I was able to narrow down the window of transmission. And it just so happened that I was only with one person for 9 months. So
you were actually monogamous when you contracted it.
Exactly, which I was even more pissed because I was like, all these years out from 14 until 22, I was fucking my life away. And then when I'm in a relationship with one person is when I get a positive diagnosis that I can't reverse. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Did you have a conversation with him and tell him, like, you gave me this?
Oh, and okay, so this is this was in 2009, if I'm doing the math correctly. People change phones like people change underwear at this time.
Right.
So No, and before we broke up, he had mentioned that he was moving. So he had already moved by the time that I had my first outbreak. And in a combination to that, he had changed his number. He had actually changed his number 3 times when we were together. And because we were together, I kept getting his new number. But by the time we actually were broken up, I didn't have a new number. So I literally had to sit with that for forever. I thought about going back on Black Planet where I met him at and seeking him out. But I'm like, yeah, that's a sea of craziness. And a lot of times, if I would have not in that state of mind that I was when I found out, I could have easily been like, you gave this to me and attacked him. And like most people, you would have denied it because he may not have known that he had the virus. He may have thought that he was taking every precaution he could have. So me getting mad and trying to seek him out and argue with him and like, it wouldn't have changed the fact that I had this virus now. So it wouldn't have made a difference.
So did you ever talk to him again? Never.
No. Number had changed. He had moved. I never spoke to him ever again.
That's kind of scary because now that's another person out there that probably still to this day doesn't even know that he has it. Because you're not bound to know whether you're not bound to have an outbreak, and you can actually contract the virus with condoms because it's skin to skin. So,
I had a condom on and I still contracted it. Yeah, exactly.
Oh wait, you were monogamous and condom using?
Oh yes, I'm a condom forever. Like I always use condoms.
Oh,
yes.
See, and this is something that I love this part of the story because we associate herpes and STDs with hoeing, and we associate it with being so liberally, so sexual, or having so many partners. Like literally, you can contract herpes your very first time having sex with a condom on.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes, you can.
And there's no going back. There's no getting rid of it. But herpes is not HIV. And I would love for people to know, not the rest of the story that we're going to talk about with you. It's the fact that it doesn't end your life. You know, you can still have a very sex positive life. You can still have relationships. Hell, you got 3 niggas. You know.
Hey. One is a nigga. The other 2 are white.
Wait.
I'm down with the swirl.
Shut up. So you're going to add another layer to the fact that I've never had a woman of color dating white people. Oh, actually, we did.
Really?
Eric, no.
Oh.
I had one. I had one. She actually had dated, but she said she won't go back.
Oh no, I have no problem. I love my Caucasian nation.
You like that pink meat?
I have been down with the swirl since John B came out singing "Your Lips, Your Smile."
Girl, I just found out this year John B was white. Literally this year.
Girl.
I didn't know.
Everybody thought he was Puerto Rican. I knew he was white the minute he started singing. I felt it. I want him.
Knew the B was for Boricua, John Boricua. You know what I'm saying?
No,
that's what I thought he was. So
white.
Let's talk about how you actually, date now. So you decided that you're not going to do monogamy anymore. So now you have all the men and you're dating and it's like, I like you. You're about to, how fast do you tell them? How quick? Because I saw one of your stories and it was like heartbreak of polyamory. And the story was about a guy you went on a few dates with. And I was like, that dickhead. So if you guys definitely go check out that one part of her blog. It's called Polyamory Heartbreak, right? Something like that?
Yes, exactly. Tales of Polyamorous Heartbreak, yeah.
Yes, that one. So I thought, I was like in the story as I'm reading it. But you went with him on a couple of dates and it had been a couple of weeks. Did you ever tell him?
Oh, he knew before we even met. So when I decided to go poly, I did an experiment, and so on some of my dating apps, I put my status out there. And
in your dating profile.
Yes, exactly. I put it on that. I met him on Hinge, and it stated my status. And the 2 guys.
How do you write it? What do you write? What's your verbiage?
I believe I deleted it now, but I put because Hinge you can write. Yeah, Hinge you can write stuff about you. So I put that I was sex positive advocate for herpes positive. I'm also herpes positive. I think I put it alongside. I kind of grouped it together versus just I have herpes, period. It was like, I'm an advocate for this because I am this person kind of thing. Yeah.
All right.
And that's
nice.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I did. And then on Tinder, I did the 2 of the guys the two of the white guys are from Tinder, and it had my status up there as well.
Oh, so you're you're a positive person for people that want to go and do online dating. I was terrible at it.
Oh yeah. I've been online dating since I was 14 years old.
Well, damn.
It is my
girl. Don't scare me. My daughter's 14. Oh my god.
Sorry, but it's like it is crazy enough. Online dating has been like my safety net My longest relationships, I've all met them online.
Okay.
Yeah, my number is very special to me. I've had it since I was 14 years old. I've never changed it. And I don't ever want to have to change it. The 2 people that I met in public, I had to get the cops called them because they were crazy. So I prefer to online date, meet people out a little bit. And once I feel comfortable with you, that's when I give you my number.
What do you do for a living?
I work in fashion, so I design clothes. But right now I'm working on a memoir chronicling my herpes and the positivity, and it's going to be like an erotic memoir that I'm working on right now.
Because my thoughts is like, do you not have time to go out and meet people, but you really just prefer meeting them online?
Yeah, it's always been like a safety net for me. I also consider myself in person socially awkward. I have really bad tunnel vision. When I'm walking down the street, it can be the most gorgeous guy that approaches me, and I'm like, goodbye, leave me alone. I clam up. Online, I feel like I can be myself. I can talk. I get a little bit more time to think about things. And also, a part of me feels that if I'm in the street, I'm not the first bitch you're talking to. You probably talk to 25 other bitches. So mine is just another number in the bucket. And it can happen online too, but for some reason, I feel a little bit more safe with me being able to gauge you online and fill you out a little bit more. And if I don't want to meet you, I don't have to meet you. Versus if it's on the street right then, it's right now, I got to give you my number right now. And it's just like awkward. And like I said, the 2 times that I did get my number out, it ended badly. So I just don't do it.
That's it. Well, it makes sense. I mean, everybody has their preference when it comes to online or meeting people in person. I rather in person. That whole texting back and forth drives me bonkers. But I don't know how to date. I
give it like a few days. Yeah.
I don't know how to date, so I'm not the best person. That's why we have you here, because I can't help anybody out with online dating. Now, you did say from the beginning, you're like, oh, I have a high libido. So I'm thinking, okay, well, girl, you want to do polyamory now. It's because you really like sex. So is it because one partner can't satisfy you sexually and you have to have like his dick tired, so you go to the next dick and then the next one because you're still horny?
I have a high libido when I'm with my partner in their presence. Like if we have a weekend together, we can be literally slamming all weekend. But if your schedules align and mine doesn't align, or all 3 don't align, I can go months without having sex and be fine.
Okay.
So it's not so much about, because the whole point for me being poly is to have that connection first. I don't want it to be only about the sex. So one of the guys I'm dating, we dated for almost 6 months before we even had sex.
Oh, okay. It
was just a really relationship to bond, because I don't have to be polyamorous to have a bunch of partners. I can just be non-monogamous, but I want that connection to exist. Therefore, I want that. That's why I do the poly part, where I want to like you. I want to have feelings for you. If we stop seeing each other and you get married, I want to be invited to your wedding. Like that's the level that I'm on. Whoa. Versus I just want all the dicks, you know?
So are your partners positive as well? The 3 you have right now?
No, they're all negative. Crazy enough, one partner is positive, and he found out before we even had sex. So he didn't contract it for me, but again, he was the one who actually asked to be tested for his blood. And with resistance, they finally tested him. He came back positive for both 1 and 2, but he's never had an outbreak. So he's literally in his mind going back, when could it have happened? And I'm like, I can't tell you anything. Because again, the nature of the virus is that if you're never tested for it, you can't narrow down a window. And you could have had it 10 years ago, but you wouldn't have known because we were never tested for it.
He wanted to get tested before you guys got intimate?
Yes. Well, he told me he had gotten tested before he had just met me, and he had mentioned he had tested positive for type 1 via blood. But, when you test for the type, you can't tell the location. You only tell location if you have an outbreak. He's never had an outbreak. So all he knows that it was that he had antibodies for the virus, which means he had the virus. And then like a couple months later, mind you, still hadn't had sex, he got tested again, and is type 2 registered under his symptoms. So again, never a symptom, never an outbreak, just the blood came back positive.
How often do men say, nah, I'm good, once you tell them that you're herpes positive?
Not as often as people would think. I've actually had a good amount of guys who still want to engage. Again, I don't know if I mentioned I mentioned before that I attend swinger parties. So there are a good amount, and I put my also status on my Instagram profile as well as my Facebook profile. So it's everywhere. So anybody who DMs me, if you read the bio for a quick second, that's one of the first things that you'll see. So you'll know immediately.
So you're an advocate for it, and you speak about it, and it's your forefront, it's your brand. But what about people that is not their brand? How do you approach someone when you're going to talk to them? Because I'm sure a lot of my listeners probably either don't know, or they do know they're positive, and they're thinking, how the fuck am I going to speak to anyone? How am I going to date? How is this conversation going to go by when I don't want to have this all over my Facebook, Instagram, Tinder, Hinge, and all this? What would you say? Were you always so open about it online?
No, I wasn't always open about it online. I used to, so before, if the conversation is going, because again, it's hard to, a part of a downfall of online dating, again, is that a lot of the conversations will often veer to sex. Before, they could be like, so how was your morning? And it's like, okay, here's my picture of my dick. And it can literally go from one to the next, 0 to 1,000 real quick. And that's where I'm like, so a lot of times people will drop the, well, I got herpes, you want to fuck or not? Which I have been guilty of being that person a few times, because if a penis was that beautiful, and I'm like, well, before I go any further, just so you know I have this, are you still down? They'll be like, yeah, I'm down. And I'm like, okay, let's party.
Just like that?
Yes, it's happened many times. Yes.
Okay.
However, now trying to become more of an advocate on the conversation, I put a post up in a lot of my Facebook groups where instead of always, I want to start the conversation on, when was the last time you were tested? Because a lot of people will respond and say, I'm good, and not know that they're good. Because the guy who I contracted herpes from, I asked him, when was the last time you were tested for everything? Were you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm good. Obviously, he wasn't, because he didn't know.
Right.
So I feel that if the conversation shifts from, I have herpes, to, when was the last time you were tested, and would you mind getting tested together, or do you have your results from your recent testing? I think that's a better way to start a conversation. And then if they said, well, I was tested, here are my results, well, and that's, at least that can be a conversation where now it's a sexual health thing versus just, I have herpes, period.
So here's the thing. When you say, have you been tested, and they give you the results, what if they give you the results that don't include herpes?
Well, that's where and a lot of it, that's where you educate them. Like, well, herpes not included on your test results. Would you mind, because I'm herpes positive, and would you mind going to get tested to see if you are positive or not? You can do that. A lot of people don't necessarily want to ask that, don't want to do that. A lot of people, even I can admit that even myself, before I became an advocate for it, if I told my partners my status and they were okay with it, that the conversation ended there. It was ready, let's go party. I never asked them for their information. I never asked them to go get tested. And again, just because you got tested 3 months ago doesn't mean that something was brewing and you may have something different now.
And there's so many other STDs outside of herpes.
Exactly. And I realized that a lot of people are like, testing is expensive, going back and forth to the doctor, but I'd rather know than not know. And I'd rather know that you're clear. I like to call it clear, STD free, than to assume that you are, because I could be mad as mad as I can be that I contracted herpes. If I had the opportunity to not contract something else, and because I chose to not ask the question, because I chose to not ask you for your results, and I get something else on top of it, I can only be mad at myself at that point. It's like slap, turn the other cheek, turn the other cheek again. You can't keep making the same mistakes. And at some point, the conversation has to change to it being more about the health and education around it versus just my status, and that's it, period. And I'll put it out there, always disclose, because people will always misconstrue that to mean, well, they should tell still. I am acknowledging that you should disclose. However, at the same time, also ask your partners and also try to get tested with your partners too.
More often than not, from you and your experience, they'll say, okay, it's fine. Like, if you're positive, we'll use a condom, blah, 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 It's like, or you don't have an outbreak, boom, put that pussy in my face. So like, got it. That's how it works. How does the conversation go when they tell you, you know what, I'm not comfortable with it?
I give the opportunity. It's okay. It's fine. And earlier this year, I was dating a guy, and we went on like a few dates. And eventually he met me on a site that I didn't have my status on. So we went on like 1 or 2 dates. And before, of course, by end of date one, he was talking about massaging my body and rubbing up on me, of course, like every guy does. And I realized that, okay, eventually I'm going to have this conversation with him. So after we were done with our second date, of course, before we headed back to his place, I was like, I like talking to you, but before we go any further, you should know that this is my status. And he was like, oh, well, thank you for telling me. I really care about my health status. I get tested after every partner. And I'm like, you get tested after every partner? What about before?
Right.
What about before? And he is like, oh, I didn't think about that. And then I go into the whole spiel of, many people don't know that they have the they don't know that they have herpes. And many people have never been tested for it. So if you really do care, it's important to get tested and make sure that you ask for, it's what was called a 10-panel STD test. That's the only test that includes all herpes, but all the viruses, including herpes and HPV. If you don't get that, 9 times out of 10, you're not getting tested for herpes. And just ask that. And so I make it a part of the education. You've already said you don't want to deal with me anymore, and that's fine, because not everybody's going to want to take the risk. And I totally get it. You have that right to say no. And with that being said, this is what tools you can do to make sure you protect yourself further.
I hope that one day it's going to be like, oh, you just got a little herpes. Like, at the end of the day, I can't wait for the day that it's just like, it is what it is, because it is what it is. I think the stat is like 1 out of 3 people have it.
Yes. Type 1, type 2. Yeah. Mm-hmm,
yeah. That's a lot of people. So that means like we have a lot of friends that have it and most likely don't even know they have it. But you go to sex clubs and you do swinging. So I've never been into a sex club, but my bestie loves them things. So from what I hear, it's like you walk in, it's like everybody's just naked or ready to go. And you look at them, give them the eye or whatever you do. How do you walk into a situation of a sex club or swinging or a sex party knowing, is there a red collar or something? Like, what do you do? Are you guys tagged?
Well, no. In preparation for my first sex party, I actually purchased a bracelet that says herpes awareness. Not that people can actually read the bracelet.
I told you. Yes. I knew you was gonna come up with something.
Yeah, sorry. I bought
My friend was like, "Don't ask that question. That is offensive." And I'm like, "I bet you there's something somebody got."
No, yeah, I definitely have a bracelet that says it. And then I made a necklace that said herpes and sexy. And again, people probably couldn't read it, but I got there early because I went by myself. When I do things off the cuff, I like to do them by myself and just get experience without people.
Sex club by yourself?
Yes, my friends love me, but they're not about this life. My friends are nowhere. They're all like vanilla. They want like one person. Maybe a guy would maybe come, but I wanted to experience it by myself. Okay. In my own space.
So give me the experience. Tell me, I want to know how it is with the herpes part, but I want to know the experience too by yourself. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So pretty much I walked in with this, I made my dress because I make my clothes. I made this dress super, super tight, corset on, titties up to my neck, like heels on, I came ready to play. I came ready. So I had my bottle of vodka because just BYOB, so you got to bring your own liquor in there. Okay. But I'm sitting at the bar, just engaging in conversation. And one guy, he was like, kept hitting on me. He's like, you're really pretty, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I would love to play with you later. He was a little saucy, and I kind of wasn't really feeling him. But then I said, who knows? You never know, right? He may change later. So I was like, I told him how I started coming in. I told him it was my first time visiting. And he was like, well, why'd you not come ever before? I was like, well, because I'm herpes positive. And I also didn't know people like me were allowed. Because again, we wonder, there's no disclaimer on these places, but you want to get people, you don't know how to navigate it. So I was like, I wanted to kind of see if I would be okay. And he was like, oh, ew. And I was like, it's fine. He's like, ew. And I was like, I mean, again, a lot of people will respond that way, which is, again, I don't take offense to it because I know the mindset. Again, when we are diagnosed, we all go through that. Oh my God, we're unsullied. We're like lepers. So him being assumed negative, I can understand his way of thinking and why he was like, ew. I wasn't offended by it.
Though.
I've been called way worse without ever having herpes being brought up. So I live in New York. I'm good. I brushed it off. Like, okay, no problem. We still continued talking, but we did nothing, which is fine. Shortly after that, some Latina guy came up to me. He was talking to me, and he was like, you're really beautiful. You look like my ex-wife. And I'm like, oh, God. But long story short, I did tell him, and he was like, thank you for telling me that. A lot of people have it. And again, he, I guess, more knowledgeable about the virus. He's like, pretty much he thanked him for telling me. And he was like, so if you would like to, I would love to go visit you. I'm like, okay, let's go. And that was pretty much it. And we went upstairs. I ate some vagina, sucked a couple of dicks. I fucked him. It was great. It was great.
God. So how do you tell him that? You give him the eye and then just be like, come on, girl.
Pretty much, yeah. It was a great conversation. Because so for me as a woman, when I went there, I asked a couple of my people. I'm a part of a writing group, and the person who runs it, he goes to clubs frequently. He gave me the point as a female going in by yourself, get there earlier so you can talk. Because you'll have the fact that I am what they would call a unicorn. For people who are coming in to look for a threesome, it may be a good thing. So it's good to get there earlier just to feel it out and feel the vibe. And I like the location because if nothing happened, worst case scenario, I was at a bar having drinks. I didn't feel bad.
Right.
So luckily something did happen. I was able to have some fun. I was able to exchange some contacts, and I had a great time. Now I don't really go to club parties anymore. The parties that I'm more engaged in are run out of a hotel with a group that I follow on Instagram, which came in handy because with Instagram, because we're all part of the same group, they'll message me directly. And before we even get to the party, yes, a private group.
I was about to say, I was like, what's the Instagram, girl?
I'll send it. I won't say it, but I'll send it.
Okay.
But yeah, so they pretty much, one of their first parties that I went to was my third party overall. A couple of the guys messaged me prior to the party, and I was like, well, you look good. I look good. I was like, well, just so you know, before we get to the party, this is my status. I have herpes, and if I'm at the party, I have no symptoms. If I'm not at the party, that means something came up and I'm not going to go.
Right.
But if you're interested, just approach me and we can have a good time. And that's pretty much why I now like this setup of the party, because I can see people, I can weed people the information first and also give them time to think about it.
Right.
Because what I don't also like doing is that instant moment. And if I'm looking like a whole snack, you may not fully think of it all around. You may just be reacting because your dick is hard.
Right.
I like the fact that if I tell you online 3 days before the party, you've had time to think about it, hopefully. And then when we get to the party, you've made your decision that this is what you really want to do.
How often do you have outbreaks? Because I know it varies per person.
Yes. Right now, I get them maybe once.
Hold on.
And
give me 1 second.
They're mild. And a lot of people.
Wait.
Yeah.
Because it just broke up. We just had the tech.
Mm-hmm.
It's 45:55. Let me write this down. All right, I want to ask you again so I can fix this audio. Mm-hmm. All right. So how often do you get outbreaks since it changes from person to person?
Yes. So me personally, I may get an outbreak every twice a year at max. And then it's very mild for me. Now, a lot of people will sit there and try to minimize the virus and say, oh, it's just a skin condition. The reality is it is not a skin condition. It is it's a nerve virus. It's a neurological virus where the nature of the virus, yes. So herpes rests in your spinal region. It either rests in the top or the bottom. The top would essentially be oral herpes, nose, face, ear, anywhere there's mucus, eyes, that's all top. Anything below the belt would be considered south and or genital. It can go as simple from a person who has no symptoms at all and never has a symptom for the rest of their life to someone who has nerve pains, can't walk, and it can be repetitive outbreaks every single month. So I don't like when people sit there and say, oh, it's just a skin virus, it's a skin thing, because it's not realistic for everybody. True, my herpes is my herpes, but I don't ever want someone to assume that, oh, I'll get outbreaks like you once a month or nothing at all. It can react in my way, and it can totally be detrimental to you. So it's really important that people are honest about what all the realities of what herpes can be.
Do you think that stress triggers it?
Oh, stress definitely triggers it. Change in weather sometimes can trigger for people. Change in diet can trigger for people. It's every person varies. For me, diet doesn't affect me. Stress doesn't affect me anymore. I think it's more like my body has developed my body is adjusted to it, and I pretty much have a even keel ability about me where I don't stress about things that I can't control. Like if it's beyond my control, it is what it is, and therefore the virus doesn't affect me that way. But some people, if you have a highly stressful job, it may be more.
What about
more reactive for you?
The daily medicine? Do you take the daily pills?
Not anymore. I used to take suppressive meds when I first was diagnosed, but I realized that when I stopped them, as time passed, I had them less frequently. And then it just became, well, I don't need it right now. But for someone who has outbreaks frequent, it does make a difference in minimizing your risk of transmission. There's never a guarantee that it will not happen, but using the suppressive meds and or any meds, anything that helps your immune system overall in combination with possible condoms, depending on where your location is, it can help minimize your risk of transmission to a negative partner. But again, it's not guaranteed.
Carolyn, I think it's so dope that you're like so open about it, because again, it's such a taboo subject. We see it. We literally, I think, react to herpes the same way we react to, a terminal illness. And it's not like you're out here fucking and multiple niggas. Like I'm out here. Yeah, you're getting it down and you're happy, and like dudes are like, yeah, I want to be with you. And some of us can't even get one. You know what I'm saying? It's like she's like, you're showing that I'm just fine. I'm out here beautiful. I'm thriving. I'm living my life, and it's not stopping me. But I think a lot of people, it makes them stop what they're doing and just, I think it's normal in the beginning, especially when you first find out. But then it takes you to a different point, which is why I want to go into the unsolicited advice letter with you. I told you the story that the same day that you messaged me, someone else messaged me and emailed me. And I thought, I'm like, this is like divine intervention, because I didn't know how to respond to her and how to help her. And I'm like I told you, I sent her a screenshot. I'm like, she literally just messaged me today. And she's like, oh my God, yeah, I know who she is. And I'm actually, she knows your blog. So she's read your blog before. So I was like, that is so cool. But we're going to go into unsolicited advice. But before we do that, because we're going like transitioning, I really want to tell you thank you for being so open, not just with us, because I know you're open on so many platforms, but you're something that we need, and as women, to know that like it's not over. And you don't have to go polyamory, because that's something completely different outside of your herpes. That's how you decided to live your life. And if you guys don't know, like, well, you did say it, you are a Black woman. So I was telling a friend of mine earlier today on the phone, I'm having this girl on the show today. This is this, like all these things. But I was really talking about polyamory first, because I was like, outside of the herpes, she's polyamorous, and it's like she has these boyfriends and blah. And he's like, then I was like, and she's Black. He goes, wait, she's what? And I'm like, well, I've never had a white person on the show. And he's like, well, that was a curveball. And I'm like, I know, right? So it's not just for white folks.
Yes. I was actually surprised when I walked into the first couple of parties I went to. There were only Black. There was 2 white people in it completely. Like, everybody
really?
Black. So I was like, but it's the thing we don't talk about, right? We're not supposed to know these things about. And again, reality is you're not supposed to know about people who are in this lifestyle, because society doesn't want you to know it. Society doesn't want you to think that you can have multiple partners. A woman can have multiple guys. He can have multiple girls. Or society is okay with a man having multiple girls, a woman having multiple guys. Nah. But I do what I want. So it's my body. It's my choice. It's
a total double standard. And there's some men, like, I know my guy, he's like, I would never. You can only have one dick a year. Like, he'll say dumb shit all the time. But I'm like, I'm like, it's not my preference, because I'm one of those, like, I want to fall in love. And, I'm one of those stupid bitches. But there are that's not, I like to be with one person. I'm cool with that, but I don't see anything wrong either with women doing it. What I do see something wrong with when there's men that are like, I don't want that, but then I'm like, okay, well, when that comes down, some people are like, oh, you just so misogynistic and you're double standard. But I'm like, you know what, there's someone out there for everybody. So you like to be polyamorous, you like to be open with your sexuality. There are men out there that are open-minded for that. And then there's the ones that are like, I just want someone that's not out here with multiple partners, and I'm the only one, even if they're a piece of shit, then there's someone for them. So I think about it sometimes. I feel like sometimes as like sex advocates and, women empowerment, sometimes they're like, y'all need to stop thinking this way. And to me, it's like, you don't really have to stop. Don't judge me for it. Don't sit here and come to my face and be like, you're a whore or whatever. No, like, do you, I'll do me. So I don't have to agree with what you're doing. And I don't necessarily agree. I don't have to judge you. It's like, you do you. You're not for me. That doesn't mean that we can't be friends. We just can't be partners. But anywho, going into unsolicited advice, her letter says, Hey girl, so long story short, I found out a couple years ago that I have HSV. I was celibate when I found out. That's another story. And I have remained celibate since finding out 4 years ago. A couple of months ago, I got a friend request from a guy that I have mutual friends with, so I accepted it. Out the gate, he was showing interest, but he wasn't direct, so I didn't think anything of it. About a month ago, he suggested that we go to lunch together, and I simply told him, you don't want these problems, and he backed off. Until recently, he has jokingly said that we are in a relationship, and I just laugh it off. Late Saturday night, he shot his shot. Remind me to send you the screenshot. Oh, I have to look that up. She's like, I didn't know how to respond. I don't want to give him a chance simply because I don't want to tell him I have herpes. My fear is that he'll reject me and tell our mutual friends. What should I do? Just for reference, I have now been single for 4 years. Let me see if I can find that that screenshot. But I think what stood out to me here that I wanted to actually speak to you about, because we talked about, you know, you being so open about it, but you weren't always open about it. What about the friends part? Because that's what's scaring her. I didn't really know like what to say. So what you can start off while I find the screenshot.
Okay. I would say this. Only when I first found out my status, only one of my friends, my close friends who are in my circle, knew about it. Everybody else who is now my real close friends didn't know. And when I finally mentioned it, because they were my real friends, nothing changed. Nothing changed at all. A person, if I'm not having sex with you as a friend, there's no reason for our relationship to change as friends. If your friends now treat you differently after you have a virus, that you cannot pass to them with holding hands, hugging, touching, sharing a cup. You can't transmit the virus by sharing a cup, by sharing a blunt. You can't. So especially if you have it genitally, she's not rubbing her vagina on a glass and then serving it to people. So there's no harm in you remaining my friend after you find out I have this virus. So the reality is, if your friends take this information and run with it and make a mockery of it, they weren't your friends to begin with.
Right.
And then the guy on the side of the guy, if you've known him for that long and he seems to have interest in you, we take the chance and meet up with him and then fill him out. Sometimes you don't even have to expose yourself to see where his mindset is at. Like, just if you're going on a date casually, just hang out and just, happen to put something on TV there where the topic comes up, or just like send a link to some random video that you saw, or like post something and then see what he says about it. Because he may just gloss. If you bring up a whole herpes conversation, never. And I try to tell people a lot of times, it doesn't hurt to say, so when was the last time you got tested? Or
right.
How do you feel about the usher with herpes conversation? If their response is, oh God, I would never, blah 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 blah, then you kind of have your answer. You don't have to say anything any further. You know that it won't work. However, if the response is, I don't see what the big deal is. Like, people got it. It's fucked up how he didn't tell them, but shit happens. That may give you an inkling, like, oh, maybe he may be a little bit more receptive to the virus. And also, it shows his character. If he is willing to talk to you about it, and if he accepts your answer, and again, it's about feeling the person out to see if their intent is genuine or if they just want to get in your pants. Because if someone who has real intentions to actually be in your life in a good way won't sit there and run and tell this information to everybody.
Right.
They will sit there and keep it to themselves and like respect the relationship that you had. And telling someone also shows character. Now, there are trash ass people out there whom, if you do tell, they will sit there and run it. But at the end of the day, the reality is it's true.
Right.
So if anything, now it's out there. And then who knows, one of your friends may have it and they'd be like, oh my God, you're too. And it's like, whoa, wow, I didn't know, because it's something that no one talks about.
Right.
So it could actually be benefit. It may, in a weird way, end up being like, oh my God, I'm dealing with this too. How do you and you never know where it can go. So I would say, don't worry about the friends part of your friend. If they're your friends, they're going to be your friends. All my friends are still in my life. None of them have said anything less than, oh my God, you're so brave, which for what it is, I hate hearing it again, but it is the truth. It is what it is.
Yeah, it
but
is.
I keep hearing that over and over again. And like, anytime I tell someone in passing, like randomly, it's like, oh my God, thank you for telling me. Like, I know people, like, I get so many good responses. I think we worry about the bad ones that may never, ever happen. And even if they do, the reality is you have this virus. It's not going away. Now stand in that truth. And that's it.
I hear the fear in her. Like when she first asked me, she's like, I want to send it to you, and please, I want it to be anonymous. Then when I read this and when I've talked to her a few times, I can sense and I can hear your fear. And I can't tell you, you know, how to do and what to do. I think your advice is great. If your friends feel some type of way about it, they're not really your friends. If they mock you, they're not really your friends. If he has a problem with it, you know, maybe he's just not that interested, or maybe he has the choice to say no. But I think that if she gets as educated as you have, especially with this, just with this podcast alone, there's so many gems and so much information that you dropped about it, and how to speak to them about it and tell them, you know, have you been tested? Because, you know, you're not usually all tested for it. I'm actually not sure when I contracted it, or whatever it is. Like if you were to contract it, you can't get, when you sound educated about it, you're not just saying, hey, I got this disease. You want to get a bumpy bump? You know, like, it's not just like that. You're not coming out like that. Like, hey, I'm bump girl. What's up? No, you're really telling them I have this virus, you know, I know when I'm having outbreaks, I'm very aware of it. I contracted it. I would love for you to get tested as well, so we know like whether you have it or not, and we can take, you know, whatever precautions we need to take. And that's it. Exactly. And it's like, if we're feeling each other, if you like me, that shouldn't change, because at the end of the day, again, herpes is not HIV. You're going to have it forever, and you can definitely live for the rest of your life, and they can be just fine, you know. And if he's really feeling you that way, there's no problem. You guys don't have to use condoms 2 years out the line. Like, just make sure that you don't have an outbreak. And if he does get it, he's already in love with you, so who the fuck cares?
Exactly, at that point.
Right. It's like, if you're already in love. And then I know she told me a couple of things, like she wanted to go with him to a couple of places, and I told her, stop playing games with that man. Just go out and see him and have the conversation. You know, don't like string him along. I don't think you should string him along for months, you know, and keep talking to him without telling him, because, you know, he's going to get attached, and you don't know if he's going to treat you like shit when he finds out, or if he just personally doesn't want to deal with it, and that's his choice, and he can choose to say, you know what, I'm not comfortable. And you don't want to get then your heart broken, then it's like, oh my God, now I'm like halfway in love and he doesn't want anything to do with me.
Yes. But I would also say a lot of people fear is that someone will reject them. And I always say, because as I wrote my blog, a lot of the worst stories happened before herpes even had to come up. I was called all types of bitches and sluts and ungrateful and ugly. And I never mentioned herpes to any one of these people. So people will reject you for a plethora of other reasons. Right. Herpes may just be one more. So it's not
a million reasons.
Exactly. So a lot of times people worry about, oh my God, my life would be so much better if it wasn't for this. Well, who's to say that was a good guy for you in the first place? That doesn't mean like, oh, so he seemed like a nice guy. He probably could have been a douche, you know, like who knows? He probably would have been a murderer. So, you know, it matters to love yourself first and sometimes stand in that truth.
And sometimes you would rather be herpes positive than be a complete dickhead. You know, you can't really help or disguise or not have an outbreak. Like, being a dickhead is not an outbreak. You might have an outbreak once or twice a year. He's a dickhead year round. So fuck him.
Exactly.
A little pill can't fix that shit. So I hope that helps. You know, I would love for you to let me know if you actually have the conversation with him and give an update to everyone if you do it. But wrapping up with our last segment, which is my favorite, and that is shit talk. I said I was gonna change it up because I just talked about this. I might do both. I just talked about it, and it's really quick. When you messaged me, you were like, hey, this is who I am. This is my blog. This is my story. This is where I have spoken on before, the podcast that I've done. And I want to come on your show because I am herpes positive. I am polyamorous. I would love to come on your show to talk about this. And I'm pretty sure you probably did the research. And if you didn't, you hit it on the thing. I haven't talked about that on my show. You know, that's something that I'm missing. So I get messages all the time. And I just got another one. And this one upset me because it was someone actually locally from Orlando. And I want to put on people from my city. It's such a small city. When I talk about podcasting, anything in media, this is not the city for. So everyone thinks that you got to come out of New York because there's like interesting folks like you in New York, a lot more outspoken. Here, you know, it's Disney World, and it's not like that. So I get an email.
I love Disney World. I love Disney World.
I get this DM and it says, you know, hey, my name is so-and-so. I'm located here in Orlando, and I started podcast podcast production company. I have these 2 podcasts. He puts the 2 names of the podcast. I would love for us to work together and for you to come on my platform and for me to go on your platform. Let me know what you think. Boom. That was it. No links, no tags, no email. So when I go to his profile, I'm like, well, let me go on his profile. Maybe I can go to his bio and get some more information. It was private. He had like 300 followers, which is fine. The follower count doesn't matter to me. You can have 100 followers, but then you have your blog information, you have your podcast information. Like, I couldn't find anything. One of them I found. I found one of them and on Apple Podcasts, and it has 5 hosts. So I'm like, you want to bring me on your show? That would make me number 6. It's a little weird. And I saw that it was 5. Yeah, it was 5 men. I'm like, well, how? I would have liked for him to tell me what I could have brought to their show, and not just because it made me feel like, hey, so you have a bigger podcast here. I just want to kind of get your audience. That's what I read from it. So I want.
That's what it sounds like.
Right. So I'm like, well, that's kind of shitty, and I'm not going to respond because I want someone to approach me the correct way, the same way I approach people, because my podcast is not as big as a lot of other podcasts, but I'm doing well. So when I approach a podcast that I want to go on to, I research what they have going on. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I can actually be a good fit because I can speak about A, B, and C that they haven't talked about yet. So I send out the email and I say, hey, I would love to collaborate with you and come on your show. My story is this. I said you haven't had an episode about mothers with teenagers and would love to come talk about it because right now my teenagers driving me crazy, blah, 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 blah. So, right. So come at me like that. And immediately I'm going to be like, hell yeah. Like I did with you when I saw your message. I'm like, fuck yeah, I would love to do this. And I'm going to find a way to do it, even though I'm not in New York right now. So that is the easiest way to get to me. You have to learn how to approach people. We're all professionals. We're all adults. We're not kids anymore.
Exactly.
Like I've seen my daughter's DMs. She'll DM like makeup companies, like huge, like MAC and all the time, like, hey, so I want to be an influencer, I have a YouTube page, can you send me some product? Literally. And I'm like,
wow,
are you fucking kidding me? But she was 12, 13 years old. You're a grown person. You should know how to send an email, put your website up, something along those lines. And I do not mind DMs. I don't mind DMs at all. But in that DM, let me know, what contact information can I get for you? What's your best email? That's the way to get my attention and to get us to work together. Not just, hey, I want to come on the show. For what?
Yeah, exactly. You have to do better.
Yes.
Do better.
Let me know why you want to come on the show. Like I right now have someone, a few people, one specifically that he keeps telling me I want to come on the show, put me on the show. But I'm thinking,
why?
What am I going to talk to you about? Yeah. And it's like, and if it's about business, I've already done a few business episodes. So and I don't mind business, but what angle are you coming with? That it'll be interesting for me. What's your angle? So don't make me come up with it, because when I come up with something, I'm coming up with something else. It's something that interests me. Make me interested in what you have to say. So that was one of my first shit talk. Just don't that. And then the other one, I'll do that one later. So you tell me, do you have something that has? Because that one's the kind of long one and she pissed me off. What you got? Has anything happened? Has any boy pissed you off recently? One of your white boys?
No. My white boys, actually, you know what? My white boys have been acting quite nice to me.
They know how to behave. I can't complain.
They know how to behave. They treat me so well, and my black boy does too. My shit talk. I can give you a shit talk.
Yes, give me.
Can I talk about the MTA for a second?
Yeah, duh.
Okay, all right. So here I go. Freaking Saturday night, I purchased my Metro card because, so New York here, whoever's listening, we have unlimited monthly Metro cards. $127 for the entire month to transfer your ass back and forth through the Metro system. Fine. Pay my $127. Sunday morning, I have a race. Boom, get home, do the race, come home, fine. Monday morning, I go to the train stop to get my little freaking ticket, and the shit dies. It says Metro card invalid. Okay. So I walk to the station. It's like, oh, well, we can't do anything. You have to send your card in. I'm like, wait a minute. I got to send this card in. I just bought it 2 days ago. You have to send it in. Because for some reason, the MTA decides that if the card is defective, the only way to fix it is to mail it to the location that is in Brooklyn and then have it take, 2 to 3 weeks for the shit to come back to you for them to send your new Metro card, which means I still have to buy another Metro card to get the fuck around. I'm like, and you got to pay $1 for that shit for the extra card. Now, granted, luckily, I'm not hungry. I'm not strapped for cash like that. But it's just the principle of the matter. The fact is, if it was stolen, you could rectify the situation faster. But you have the card. You can check the serial number. I was like,
that's
$254
in 2 days.
Girl. And I'm like, I told the lady on the phone, like, do you understand how stupid this policy is, right? And she's like, and again, I don't like to be the person that gets angry at the person who's on the phone because I know that's not their job. They don't make the policy.
Right.
Yeah, but you're going to get these words you're going to get these words in an angry tone, but I'm not yelling at you. But you're going to hear my frustration come through this phone line. And I'm like, you know, this is stupid policy, right? Well, you could always write a complaint. Oh, I'm writing a complaint. I'm writing a couple of complaints. I'm tweeting you motherfuckers. It's going to be on blast because it's bullshit. That is my rant.
No,
essentially my rant.
I would have left New York for sure if I would have done that, because I never did the month. I would do the weekly because there were days that I wouldn't leave the house. So it was $33, I believe. So I would pay the 30. I would have been damned if my card would have stopped working. Let me tell you, I would jump. When my daughter came for 2 weeks, I would have her get really close to me. And like, I never paid for her to go in. And Mandy was like, bitch, you going to jail. Like, they going to take you. The police going to see you and both of y'all going to get arrested. But
it's a lot of money.
It is. Like, every time I had to pay for it, I was like, damn, I don't want to pay for this. So that's a good one because, yeah, I know how that feels. And $250 in 2 days, that's a lot for transportation. That's a car payment.
Exactly. Yeah, and the thing is, I allocate my funds. Like, I'm trying to get my shit together. So I'm allocating my funds literally every week. After I pay my bills, what I spend in my checking is all that I can spend. So literally, I had to then fucking take money out of my savings to cover it. And I'm like, this is whack, because I literally spent every last bit of money. Because again, I overshop. I shouldn't be. But I mean, again, we'll get it. I'll get it one day. Yes, I'll get it. I'll get it together one day. I promise. I mean, it's not today. But I was pissed. I was not happy about that.
That's so funny. Carolyn, thank you so much for doing this episode with me.
Thank you so much, Carla.
Absolutely loved it. You're amazing. And Mandy did tell me, she's like, when you talk to her, she's so good. And I'm like, I'm so excited.
Oh,
she did say you were going to be so good. So tell everyone where to find your blog, because I could spend, I just read blog after blog because it was so interesting.
Oh my God.
So well. And
thank you so much.
Where they can find you and all the fun stuff.
Oh, yes. So my blog is talesoftony.com, spelled TALESOFTONEY. It's my name. And then I'm on Instagram, Facebook, as Carolyn Toney, my first and last name, CarolynToney. And I'm also on Twitter as Tales of Toney as well. And that's it. That's all my information so far. I'm working on, like I said, I'm working on my memoir. Hopefully, I'm now trying to find, 3/4 of the way done with it. I'm trying to find publishing agents so that I can get it out there and start and change the world one herpes positive person at a time.
I want to write one. I want to write a book, and I'm wondering, how hard is it for me to write a book? It probably takes a lot.
So when I become neurotic about things, when I fall down a rabbit hole completely. So literally after the Horrible Decisions episode, I came home and I just started writing. I would go from my job, sit at Barnes & Noble and write for hours, and I just buried myself into it because I feel it's time sensitive and I want to get it out there as fast as possible, but well done. So if you have the stories, and again, I've been writing my blog for a minute, and my life is my life. It's easier writing a memoir than it is writing the fiction novel that I was working on prior to it. So once I get this memoir's done, and maybe a draft or two, and then probably maybe reformatting a few things, but your life is your life, right? And you can just write it. And then you can always change the voice around, change the tone around afterwards. But the first step is to just get it all out on paper or in whatever digital format you use. Just get it out there and just write. And then you can figure out what kind of voice you want after the fact.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much again for coming on. And you guys know to find us anywhere where you listen to your podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, everywhere. Okay. And don't forget to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. You can do it on your computer, off an iPhone, on iPod. You can have a PC or a Mac, so that doesn't matter. Go on iTunes, rate and review. I will actually in the beginning of the show be reading reviews again. And when you listen to the show, and you decide that you like it, what helps us is when you share on social media. I love when I get to repost stories of people that's like, I'm listening to your show, or they send me a DM like, this is the part that I love. That's amazing to me because one, you're like sharing. If you really like something, when I like something, I tell all my friends. I'm like, girl,
oh hell yeah,
listen to
everywhere.
this episode.
Right.
Yeah. I blast episodes, or I just found a new restaurant and I love to tell everybody about it, or I found new makeup and I'm like, friend, this right here really covers your face and they make you like Rihanna. You know, I love to share everything that I do. So I would love for you guys to share on your social media when you're actually listening to an episode. That way, you know, you can put it out there more for myself, and that doesn't cost you a dime. So I would love for that. And again, I will see you guys next week.